from sea to shining sea throughout the solar system, and extending to interstellar regions beyond. This is the Kevin Smith Show. Talk radio like nowhere else on Earth.
Comments and views expressed on The Kevin Smith Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the views of Kevin Smith, The Kevin Smith Show, or its affiliates or sponsors.
Hi, folks, and welcome to the Kevin Smith Show. Whoever you are, wherever you are, all around this beautiful planet we call Earth, thank you for being here at the show. I appreciate it. You could be doing a million other things right now, but you chose to be here, and I appreciate it. I'm here because you have a right to know, and because you matter. Well, tonight is Baktum Eve. Big night. And before we get into all that, let me remind all of you, and those of you who are new, let me inform you that we publish a free weekly newsletter. It is free, really free, no strings attached. It's called the K-Files, and just scoot over to my website, kevinsmithshow.com, and click where it says K-Files. Subscribe, and then you will no longer be in the dark. As I said, this is Baktum Eve. Now, everybody's aware that it's December the 21st, and everybody is all around the world pretty aware of, you know, the predictions, the prophecies, and so forth about Doomsday, December the 21st. But a lot of you have not considered that means that it is Baktum Eve. That's a big deal. We'll talk more about that. But tonight is a celebration here at the Kevin Smith Show, and in celebration of Baktum Eve, we'll be on for 4 hours tonight. I understand some of our affiliates have to leave us at the regular time, but if that happens, you can still scoot over to kevinsmithshow.com and catch all of the show. By the way, it is free to watch tonight. So wherever you are, if you have an internet connection, you could be watching this show tonight, and I encourage you to do so. There will be things that you will want to see. We're going to do this a little different tonight in that the telephone lines will be open for most of that 4 hours. And we will accept calls for most of that 4 hours. They're not open yet, so don't call yet, but when we open them, then you can call, and like I say, for most of the 4 hours, it'll be open. Now, the show is divided into segments tonight, instead of just one guest for the whole show like we always do that, or like we normally do that. We've got, segments with some segments with guests and some segments that don't have guests, and we're doing other things. So, normally we have this rule about, it's kind of a soft rule, but it's kind of a rule. Policy is a better word. One call per caller per show. Well, that's out the window tonight because we have different segments dealing with different things. And so you'll want to, be able to call in the different segments, and we're going to let you do that. Also coming up tonight, as part of the celebration, I've taken one of my Kevinisms, turned it into a song, and I'm going to sing it for you tonight. Yes, indeed, the Golden Voice will debut tonight, And I'm not going to tell you until it's time. We'll just do it when it's time. So you want to stay tuned for all of that. And also, let me explain. Well, no, it's time for a break, so let's go to a break.
I don't really want to do this, but I haven't got a choice. I don't want to say this, but I'm hearing my own voice. Baby, I love you from the bottom of my soul. Baby, I'm gonna love you till I'm old. You're the sun that shines so bright, turns my whole day into gold. You're the stars that light my sky when the night is so cold. But that last call has me in the bottom of this glass, and all of our future has just become our past. Pictures that he sent me are tearing through my heart. Baby, it's the end, not the start. This is the last call you'll ever get from me. It's the last time you'll ever hear me say these things. It's the last call I'll ever make to you. It's the last call, 'cause baby, we're through. This is the last call you'll ever get from me. It's the last time you'll ever hear me say these things. It's the last call I'll ever make to you. It's the last call, 'cause baby, we're through. I meant it when I said forever I would hold. Thought you meant it too, but I see it wasn't so. But that last call has me in the bottom of this glass, and all of our future has just become our past. Pictures that he sent me are tearing through my heart. Baby, it's the end, not the start. This is the last call you'll ever get from me. It's the last time you'll ever hear me say these things. It's the last call I'll ever make to you. It's the last call, 'cause baby, we're through. This is the last call you'll ever get from me. It's the last time you'll ever hear me say these things. It's the last call I'll ever make to you. It's the last call, 'cause baby, we're through. Yeah, baby, it's the last call.
All right, welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. Boy, I'll tell you, if that song didn't tear your heart out, you don't have one. Now, I said before we went to break, I needed to explain something. It's for the listeners, but also our affiliate stations. Normally, everything we do is automated here, or as much of it as is possible. The breaks happen automatically and so forth. Every other break tonight is automated. Tonight, because of some of the things that we're doing, only half is being, well, okay, normally the radio computer runs everything, and those who are watching on our television channel just get to watch in as it happens. In other words, it originates everything. Well, tonight, some of what we are doing will be originated on the TV channel, and those on the radio will get to hear it. But when we switch between systems, there is, as you just heard, a momentary echo, a little echo as we switch. There's nothing wrong with your TV set. There is nothing wrong with your radio. That's just us doing the switchover between the two systems. Tried to work that out where it wouldn't happen, and I could not figure a way to not make that happen. It does happen. Also, it is 4 hours tonight, and so those affiliate stations that want to stay with us, welcome. We're glad to have you. And those that have to leave us at the regular time, we understand that. Okay? Now, as I said, this is Baktum Eve, and that's a big deal. The reason it is Baktum Eve, the reason December 21st, 2012, ever even surfaced is because it is the last date on a Mayan calendar. Now, they have a whole bunch of different calendars, but this is the long count calendar. And it marks the end of what they call a Baktum. Now, how long is a Baktum? Well, that's why this is such a big, big deal. In years, a Baktum is 394.25 years. So there's no one alive right now who was alive at the last Baktum Eve. We're all new to this. And so, I mean, there's nobody around to tell us how you celebrate Baktum Eve, right? So we're just going to sort of wing it and celebrate Baktum Eve our way here at the Kevin Smith Show tonight. Now, one of the interesting things, I mean, there's so many interesting things about this this calendar, this Mayan calendar, Baktum Eve. Well, we are right now in the 13th Baktum. Once we pass into December the 22nd, we will be into the 14th Baktum. All right? One Baktum in years is 394.25 years, almost 400 years. It is, in days, 144,000 days. And I found that pretty interesting because the number 144,000 figures prominently in some other ancient literature, including in the Bible. In the book of Revelation, the number 144,000 comes up a couple of times. In one particular group, one particular denomination, I guess they're worldwide now, but they started in the United States. That would be the Jehovah's Witnesses. The number 144,000 is significant because their belief is that Jesus Christ has already returned, and he took 144,000 with him back to heaven. Heaven's full, and nobody else gets in. But you can qualify for paradise here on earth. If I misstated that, and we have some witnesses listening, I didn't misstate it on purpose. That's my understanding of it. But the 144,000 is the point. That is a significant number amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. And here we find it's a significant number for a group that are not Jehovah's Witnesses, and they are not Christians. They are Mayans, ancient Mayans. 144,000 days equals a Baktum. Now, if you add the digits that make up 144,000, you come up with 9. 144. 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9. And the rest of it's zeros, so it doesn't affect it. 9 is a power number. It's a sacred number. And it has different meanings for different groups. I'm not sure exactly what that would have meant, if anything, to the Mayans. But isn't it interesting that one Baktum is 144,000 days? So, as I said, now, this is the 13th Baktum, and in just a few hours here, it'll be the 14th Baktum. I've been in touch with people around the planet today, starting just after midnight last night. It was last night for us. It was daytime for them. And everything seems to be moving along pretty much per normal. And no destruction yet. One of my friends, who has been a guest on this show, said to me, and since I didn't ask if I could quote him, I can't tell you who it was, but you can guess, and I won't tell you anyway. But he said, well, yeah, but you know, the fat lady hasn't sung yet. Well, that's true. We're not out of December 21st yet. There's still time for the earth-busting calamities to hit us, and I hope it doesn't. It could. There's time, but I hope it doesn't happen, and I don't think it will, but we'll see. But everything is kind of rocking along per normal. And so here's what I would like to start off with tonight. And we're going to go ahead and open up the telephone lines. And the telephone number is 623-444-5889. As I said, the one call per show thing is out the window tonight. You can call in on all these questions and all the segments, and you can talk to the different guests and comment and question about the different topics we talk about here tonight. But the very first thing I want us to get to is this: how are you celebrating Baktum Eve this evening? Now, even if now look. Don't call me and tell me you're celebrating it like the Mayans with human sacrifice. We know they did. I don't know if they celebrated Baktum that way, but certainly they engaged in human sacrifice. But I don't want to hear that. But, you know, how are you celebrating Baktum Eve? Even if you didn't think about it being Baktum Eve, you're spending the evening somehow. December the 21st, 2012, you're spending it somehow. How are you spending it? And, you know, what are you up to this evening? It doesn't have to be anything spectacular. Maybe you're just sitting in front of your computer or your telephone watching the show tonight and having a bag of popcorn. Well, that's one way to celebrate Baktum Eve, I guess. The telephone number is 623-444-5889. Now, considering what happens with New Year's Eve, by the way, for those of you who are not in the USA and you're not in Canada, we have an additional option for you. You can call us, and we'd love to hear from you. But another thing that you could do is you could go to the website, kevinsmithshow.com, and use the flash message option to communicate with us. I'll read it on the air, provided your flash message is about what we're talking about. But how are you celebrating Baktum Eve? I want to remind everybody of what I just said, and that is flash messages only work if you're outside the USA and outside of Canada. And if you read right beside where it says flash message, it says outside USA, outside Canada. So if you send me one, I will not be able to read it. All right, unless you're outside the USA and outside of Canada. So anyway, we would love to hear from you. How are you? Come on now, get your phone. It's going to be a long evening if you just sit on your thumbs like normal. I mean, this is Baktum, right? How are you spending Baktum Eve? 623-444-5889. All right, you know, doing a little last-minute Christmas shopping on Baktum Eve? Spending the evening in your bunker? How are you spending Baktum Eve? Now, New Year's every year is a big celebration all over the world. And I've celebrated New Year's in a lot of different countries, and it's a big celebration all over the world. So, you know, there are sometimes parades and all kinds of, you know, civic gatherings, and then usually fireworks and music and all kinds of stuff. And But that comes around every 365 days. Baktum only comes around every 394.25 years. Now, that's a bigger deal. Caller, you are live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Brent from Wyoming.
Hi, Brent.
I celebrated part of my Baktum Eve shelling pecans.
Uh-huh. Okay, so is there like a significance between Baktum and pecans, or it just worked out that way?
It worked out that way. We're making Jello salad, so I need the nuts.
Uh-huh. All right. So you got big plans?
Just sitting here watching your program.
Well, that's a good thing. Now, have you ordered up a bunch of fireworks for Baktum, or you gonna have a big fireworks show?
Kind of illegal here.
Ah,
we're so dry.
I see.
How much snow did you get?
A lot. A lot. Blizzard. We had blizzard conditions, so we got a lot. I like blizzards.
We could use some out here.
Yeah, I like blizzards.
I know you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my kind of year and my kind of weather. I love it.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Don't go to Russia right now.
Okay, why not?
50 below.
That's pretty cool.
Without the wind.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That is cold, yeah. But I'll tell you something. In 50 below, if you have a wood stove and you stoke that thing with wood, you will have nice, toasty, warm surroundings. It's wood stove heat is fabulous.
If you've got insulation.
Even if you don't, you just sit closer to the stove, man.
You can only get so close where you burn, though.
Well, you can stay warm with a wood stove, insulation or not. You just have to be a little closer. But it is great heat. I loved it.
I know. I've been in tents before at 30 degrees, well, lower than 30. Campfire was it.
Well, yeah. Problem with that is you can't put the campfire in the tent. Not for long, anyway.
Stove.
Yeah, not for long. You can't.
No.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
All right, thanks for the call. Okay, there you have it. Brent celebrated Baktum by shelling pecans. At least part of his evening was spent shelling pecans. How are you spending Baktum Eve? Now, this is important, folks. This is not a joke. This really is important. I want to tell you why it's important. Do you know there's almost no place in the world where people are keyed up about December the 21st except right here? And not everybody's keyed up about it. But there's almost no place in the world except here where people are keyed up. There may be a few little pockets of it here and there, but it seems to be sort of localized to the USA. All right, caller, you are live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Hello, Kevin. It's Kathy from Las Vegas.
Hi, Kathy.
Happy Baktum Eve.
Well, happy Baktum Eve to you, too.
I've never said that to anyone before.
You will never be able to say that again, either. I mean, after tonight.
I'm just sitting here trying to see my auras.
Okay.
And I'm looking at it, I'm not seeing anything, and I'm telling it to go on, and it's not working.
It's not working. So, can you normally see your auras?
No, I haven't been able to. I was hoping that the new vibration would help.
I
wanted to ask you about Jerry Wills. He had some kind of device that allows people to turn that part on for the first time.
Yeah, I heard something about that. I don't know anything about it other than I think he said it on this show.
That's probably where I heard it, but I would like to get some more information from him on that.
Yeah, well, he might be listening tonight. He's been pretty busy. You know, they've been outfitting the travel trailer and getting it ready so that it is both living quarters, mobile living quarters, and a mobile media center studio. And so they've been kind of racing the clock getting that finished. And I think they're pretty close to finished, but I'm not sure.
Well, if they make it out this way and they want a free meal, they're welcome to stop by.
Well, there you go, Jerry. If you're listening, you got a free meal waiting for you guys in Las Vegas. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so are you going to spend the rest of Baktum trying to see your auras, or?
Probably.
Well, you're going to have an aurable night.
It will be very interesting. So I hope everyone out there in Radio Land is also having a very good evening.
Yeah. Well, you need to say happy Baktum to as many people as you can tonight, because it's going to be 394.25 years before you can say that again.
Well, happy Baktum Eve Day to everyone out there.
Okay. Thanks for the call.
Bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be back right after this break, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Kelly, and I'm calling from Florida, and you are listening to The Kevin Smith Show. Talk radio like nowhere else on earth, healing medicine for the mind. You don't know why.
All right, welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show, and let me remind everybody, part of this is being done by our normal automation software, part of tonight's show. Part of it is being done by a different computer, and when we switch between the two, which we did not do that time, but when we do, you're going to hear a little echo just for a second or two, and then it'll go away. So there's nothing wrong. There's just no way that I can switch those live without there being that little echo. Remember, 10 days ago, I did a show where I asked you to call in and tell me what you would like for us to have and what you would like for us to do on this show tonight. And a number of you requested a particular guest, and then I got email after that suggesting that same guest. So in addition to the calls, we got email that suggested the guest, and he is with us. Let me welcome to the show James Horak.
Hello, Kevin.
Hi, James. Happy Baktum to you.
Thank you, and happy existence.
Okay, so let me ask you, James, do you have any idea whatsoever how the Mayans would have celebrated Baktum?
Well, they wouldn't have done any human sacrificing, if that's what people are concerned about. But
okay.
They would have burned incense. They would have had some of their shaman drinking a concoction that is semi-hallucinogenic. They would have had ceremonies, various ceremonies. The people, the mayors of all the villages would have come in their finery. They would have shared food. They've done a number of things. These people are very ceremonial. They still keep to some of their religious traditions, and it's a strange admixture between Catholicism and what they practice. Very colorful. They're not appreciated by the state of Mexico, either the state that they're in. Yucatan has, I think, 3 states. Is partitioned up into 3 states. So they don't like federales, and federales fear them to some extent.
All right, so I was mentioning earlier, James, that a Baktum, this is the 13th Baktum, we're moving into the 14th.
Yeah.
And a Baktum is 144,000 days long. It's 300, that comes out to 394.25 years. So 394 and a quarter years. But it's 144,000 days, and I said that, I find that number pretty curious because that pops up in the Bible, in Revelation, 144,000. And one of the denominations here in the United States, or that was founded here in the United States, that's a significant number for them. And 144,000 adds up to the number 9. Is there any significance to that with the Mayans?
Yes. The Mayans had a visitor, and he wanted to admonish them and take them away from human sacrifice, which had become part of their economy.
Mm-hmm.
And while he pointed to the sun and told them when the eclipse would come. Before it came, he was kind of like the Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court, short novel by Mark Twain.
Mm-hmm.
He was very concerned about them, and he had an impact. And this went. The legends of this figure go through South America, they go through North America, they go through Central America, but the 144 is the life expectancy of your ancestors. Many people in arcane knowledge believe that the time given a soul or spirit to perfect is 144 years. So he can, if you choose, you can reincarnate, or you can walk in, or whatever, to take that, to mature that spirit or whatever. Of course, that's fanciful. Of course, it's a square of 12. It has all kinds of connotations to numerology.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that think that a lot of the equations that science uses are influenced by an adherence to 144. It is a significant number in many ways, considered kind of like where you have people that follow along with sacred geometry, they also follow along with sacred numbers. And 144 is a rather odd assortment of progressions, let's say. But I think the important thing is that it is a point of that represents the change. It's used to represent the change of life into immortal spirit, and that it's represented by that. It also forms a perfect grid. The geodesic dome, perfect grid. The machines that are put in a matrix around the Earth to work with machines in the moon to keep parity between the moon and Earth, so that the moon doesn't go, we don't lose it, and it doesn't come into Earth. 144, because that makes a perfect geodesic matrix.
All right, so from the Mayan point of view, though, it would have spiritual significance.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when we talk about spiritual, we don't necessarily mean religious, do we?
No. They had erudite men. They had libraries. They had a number of things that they had road signs. I've got a Mayan road sign.
I have seen that.
Yeah.
You showed me that.
And the Spanish got rid of most of that stuff, and I got a couple of other things that are. I've got something very rare. It's a Mayan goddess, and it's out of. Did I show that to you?
As you start describing it, I will perhaps remember, but I'm an old guy. I forget things.
It's out of limestone crystal,
and
it's fairly large, and of course. The only way that you can tell that it's a goddess is by the shape of the back, and but it's exquisite. Has no writing on it whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think you showed that. Yeah, I don't think you showed that to me. I'm not recalling it.
Well, I'm going to give that to somebody. I've already promised it to her, a close friend of mine and a colleague, and I told her about it. for whatever, but I'm going to give it to her, and it's elegant. I've had it for a while, so I did show you the little underworld god that's made out of pumice.
Yeah, ugly too. Ooh, ugly.
Oh yeah, well that's they would take it. That thing's been gorged in human blood many, many times. That's why they like humus, because they could gorge it. This is a altarpiece, and they gorge it with human blood, and then they would burn incense by it and give it a more pungent smell. I mean, you can imagine the horror attached to that. But you know, I look at things like that, and I don't see anything foreboding about them. You've got to conquer fear. And one of the best ways to conquer fear is to be brazen as hell in its face.
Yeah, that's true.
You are.
Me? I'm shy and retiring.
Although you didn't want to go out and meet the Mothman, did you?
No, I didn't. I'm shy and retiring when it comes to stuff like that. All right. Now, last night, there's been a whole lot of talk about how we're going to go through the galactic medium. And for those who don't understand, the galaxy has an equator just like a planet has an equator. That equator of the galaxy is the galactic medium. As the Earth goes around the sun is going around the galaxy, dragging all its planets with it. And we sort of bob up and down like we're riding on waves. And every 13,000 years or so, we either go up through the galactic medium or we come back down through the galactic medium. And we were going up, and we went up through it last night. According to the astronomers, it took us about 8.5 minutes to go through it. So we passed through the galactic medium. Now, James, for the past several years, there have been a whole lot of stories about what was going to happen to us as we pass through this galactic medium, and there's going to be this shot of energy and so forth. What, if anything, happened as we went through the galactic medium?
Well, along with the planetary alignment, which you put that together with the galactic medium, and you got something that doesn't occur just once every 13,000 years. It doesn't occur but once every 26,000 years. And so I feel that mechanically, that the only thing that I would put my finger on that's predictable is that it's going to diminish this tug-of-war between the Earth and Moon, which affects our consciousness, and we'd have a window in which we'd be free from an inconstant gravity wave for 18 minutes or so, like the Mayans talk about. And it's amazing to me that they figured on 18 minutes, because that's just about the amount of time everything is in perfect alignment, and you're right there central, and that would have occurred about 11:30 last night. So,
and that 18 adds up to 9.
Yeah.
8 plus 1.
It's fantastic, but you know there's something that everybody's left out, and that is that we have other planets that are not in alignment.
Okay. Well, hang on, because we have a break that we're going to have to step away to. I don't want to get into anything really deep here before this break, all right? So we will... We have a few seconds left, but I didn't want to dive off into something deep here and then have to break away. We'll get into that when we come back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are tonight celebrating Baktum. I want to wish all of you a happy Baktum this evening. You're celebrating it here at the Kevin Smith Show, even though you did not think about celebrating Baktum. I bet you didn't. But anyway, you are. And we're going to celebrate it together all the way past midnight, all right? All right, we're going to step away for a break, and we shall return right after this.
Keep your love up, dead, and you talk
All right, welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. And our guest right at the moment, celebrating Baktum with us this evening, is James Horak. So James, let me, I'm looking at the flash message thing over here, and it's blinking, but I can't bring those up. Let me try it again. Okay, we've got a couple of flash messages here. Kevin in Australia. Hello, Kevin and fellow members. Happy Baktum Eve. Also, let's not forget all our police officers and coalition forces overseas and at home, and have a safe Christmas and Baktum Eve. All nice and warm in Oz, Kevin. Having barbecue and eating lots of candy and popcorn with all the family. What a great way to celebrate Baktum Eve. Thanks, Kevin. All right, James, very quickly, because we have some more things we got to get to here before our time with you expires. You were just about to say one of the things that people don't take into account in this galactic alignment is other planets, and I kind of cut you off and said, hang on, let's get into that after the break. What are we talking about?
We're talking about 4 planets that have never been acknowledged, that you had a show about, that this Dr. Gomez, I believe,
okay,
had presented before as a lecture.
That's right.
His name got taken off of the schedule, and nobody would report on what he had to say about 4 planets that had been discovered in our system, and that are not acknowledged by scientists or astronomers, and that they how can you be really accurate with astrology, and how can you be pinpoint certain influences if you don't factor in these planets?
Wow, how true, how true. All right, James, I want to do something real quick. I want to do this before midnight. I also want to do it after midnight. But I promised everybody that I was going to sing for them tonight. And James, you've heard this, so you know, I know you've already got your bricks ready to throw. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to sing for you, but and it's a song that I wrote for tonight, okay, and it's based on one of my Kevinisms. So I want to take a couple of calls real quick, just a couple of guesses as to which Kevinism you think I chose to use for the song, okay? So 623-444-5889, 623-444-5889. That's the number. I want to hear a guess from somebody. I mean, look, people who think you don't matter, don't matter. That's one Kevinism. Another one is the most powerful word in human speech is no. Okay, I mean, think of the Kevinisms that you've heard me say over the years, and which one do you think I chose to make as the basis of this song? Come on, at least one call, 623-444-5889, and give us a guess, all right? Because we're going to have to move on. I mean, you can't sit around and think, well, I don't know, should I call, should I not? And you got to do it because we have to move on. All right, a brave soul. Caller, you are live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Jerome from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Jerome. Which Kevinism do you think it is?
I'm going to say it's the power of the word no.
Good guess. We'll find out in just a moment. All right? Thanks for the call. All right, somebody else real quick, 623-444-5889. 623-444-5889. Somebody, anybody? Going once, going twice, and gone. Okay, we had one guess, and we'll find out in just a moment if that's it, but I've got to give you a word of caution. 2 of the songs you've heard tonight, I'm the co-writer. The first one, Last Call, and the one you just heard, Vampire Lady. I am not the singer on any one of those or any other song. I am a co-writer with Jeff Bird Music, but there's a reason I'm a co-writer and not a singer, and you're about to find out why. So at this point, all small children and anybody with a serious medical condition, they should turn down the radio. Small children should leave the room. Not because there's profanity, but because this is going to be terrifying. All right, here we go. Let's see what happens. I ain't looking for apocalypse, baby, and I ain't trying to die. It's gonna come for us sometime, honey, but today I am very alive. You gotta live till you don't, sweet honey. Walk every day in the sun. You gotta live till you don't, little darling. Live till the living is done. I ain't waiting on no doomsday, honey, but I ain't trying to die. It's gonna come for us sometime, baby, but today I'm too busy to die. You gotta live till you don't, sweet honey. Walk every day in the sun. You gotta live till you don't, little darling. Live till the living is done. I hear the prophets of doom and gloom saying that we're all gonna die. I came here dying from the day I arrived. They ain't gonna make me cry. You gotta live till you don't, sweet honey. Walk every day in the sun. You gotta live till you don't, little darling. Live till the living is done. Gotta live till you don't, little darling. Live till the living is done. All right, welcome back. Now, there's a big crowd, of course, gathered outside the studio when they heard I was going to be singing this evening. And so let's just open up the mic, see what their reaction is. Are they throwing bricks or what? I don't know yet. But let's find out if we can. Can we open those mics up? Oh, well, it was well received outside. Okay, enough of that nonsense. No. Enough of that nonsense, okay? Okay. Now, you see, folks, now you know why I don't sing. But I wrote that little tune based on a Kevinism you've heard me say, and that is, well, you got to live till you don't. And I thought it was really fitting for Baktum Eve. We got to live till we don't. Now, that song doesn't say that absolutely nothing's going to happen. It just says, I can't stop it, whatever it is. I'm going to live till I don't. James, I'm curious. What's your attitude towards that?
I want an autograph.
Well, you're probably the only one who does.
Well, I'm impressed with Vampire Lady.
You like that, huh?
Oh, I think we share a common experience.
Now, don't get me into trouble.
Oh, I'm not. I mean, so far, the ladies consider us lovers of the genteel sex, and we are, but not all of the genteel sex is genteel.
Well, that's true. That's true. And not all of us are gentlemen. So, you know. No, it's just a song. And, but I thought, you know, the vampire theme, although not really part of Baktum, might be kind of cool for tonight. I don't have any fireworks, you see. And that's the problem. No fireworks. All right, we do have to step away now for a break, and we will be back right after this.
It's about 10:30 a.m. near Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm going to show you something that's kind of trippy. I'm going to take this card right here. It's a normal piece of paper, a couple inches long, about an inch wide. It's a valet slip from downtown. I'm just going to use this. I'm going to use it to block the screen, kind of like just partially, so that you can see something behind the sun, and then I can prove that it's not lens glare. And that's what all these people are saying, is that you're seeing lens glare and you're seeing things that aren't there. So give me just a second. Okay. So, if you didn't know, that's the sun. And at the bottom of the screen you'll see lens glare. Notice it moves very easily. I mean, it has a very wide range depending on how you angle your screen. Alright, now if I take this valet slip and I come up just enough on the camera, you can see that little circle. It's about just to the top right of the sun. Now you can say that this is lens glare. Now if I move it this way, it doesn't move. It stays in the same spot. If I come back, oops, sorry, it's windy. If I come back and move this way, it stays above the sun, right there. Now if that's lens glare, then how come it's not moving like this one? Like that. That one moves. See it? That's lens glare. I know it looks the same. However, that cannot be lens glare if you can see it when the sun is not hitting my screen. And if I'm turning it, then how can it be lens glare? It stays in the same spot. This isn't a trick card. There's nothing on it. There's no tricks. It's just a card. Kind of makes you wonder. It's about 10:30 a.m. near Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm going to show you something that's kind of trippy. I'm going to take this card right here. It's a normal piece of paper, a couple inches long, about an inch wide. It's a valet slip from downtown.
There was our little echo. Okay, welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show, and happy Baktum Eve. We are celebrating tonight Baktum. Baktum is what the Mayans called this day. This day is the end of the long count cycle of 144,000 days. And once we pass into December 22nd, we will be into the next Baktum. Just like December 31st will be New Year's Eve for us. And after midnight, we pass into what? The next year. So this is Baktum Eve. Nobody alive on the planet now has ever celebrated a Baktum Eve, because they would have to be older than 394.25 years, 144,000 days. So this is a big-time special event, and I'm glad we're getting to be a part of it. On the line with me is James Horak. James, I have a flash message here from Roy in Mexico. Hello, Kevin. This afternoon, well, it's kind of long. He visited Teotihuacan, where the pyramids are near Mexico City, and he said there are a lot of people there, not as many as he expected, but it was still full of people. And most of the people that he has spoken to there do not believe the world is going to end. Rather, they expect some kind of spiritual renewing. And then he says, what do you think the History Channel is going to do when we wake up tomorrow morning? It seems they've been getting a lot of mileage out of the 12-21-12 myth. Love your show. Keep up the good work. So I don't know what the History Channel will do. I guess make some new programs about some other new thing that's going to kill us. Maybe, I don't know. But James, he said that most of the people there are not expecting the end of the world. They're expecting some kind of a spiritual renewal in the world. Is that reasonable and rational for them to think that?
Yeah, I believe that that they have a community. If you have a community of thought about something, it's much more apt to become realized. You can have mass hysteria, for instance, that is occasioned where you actually, if you've ever watched people speaking in tongues, you know what I'm talking about. But at the same time, people can join in their effusiveness can produce very interesting phenomena which visionaries know how to take advantage of. And I think that if people collect and share a common concern, whether it's a ceremonial concern or whether it's rejoicing or whatever, that I think that it can be actually spiritually lifting. And I suggested that people would group together with friends and go out and build a bonfire and watch the 21st change into the 22nd and see if people felt any different, see if they acknowledged anything that where they felt more enlightened or whatever they might feel, because I think that there is that we are having an experience that can affect consciousness. Now, the more progressed you are, the more you own your own mind, the less the effect's going to be. It's like you take vitamins and you're healthy, you're not going to get much benefit from the vitamins. But if you are anemic, you do. Well, the same is true if a person is boxed in and hasn't thought about it much, has a very narrow outlook, and suddenly something happens which challenges that limitation that he self-imposed, then things happen. That's why I said I bet you that there are people that are in a comatose state, and I mean literally a comatose state, to come out of it during this period. It doesn't take much, but I think that's a possibility, and I would be interested in hearing of any reports that occurs. But with the effects of what's going on now may persist into our dreams. Things may happen. I think that it's important to understand that that right now we have the closest thing to a constant gravity wave that we've had in 26,000 years, and that makes a difference. It makes a difference. So
okay.
Whether or not, I mean, it becomes more than what we perceive right now, or that we're going to find out from people around the world, I don't know. this has never happened to humankind on this planet before.
Well, certainly not in 26,000 years.
No.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I want to open up the telephone lines because I know some of you may have a question or a comment for James, and he is, we have an allotted time with him, so you need to give us a call. 623-444-5889 is the number to call. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Hi, Kevin. It's Lasha from Vancouver.
Happy Baktum.
Happy Baktum. I don't know the words to your song, but I'll hum the Baktum.
Well, now you see, it's free to watch tonight, and if you were watching, the words were on the screen.
That's true.
Yeah. And I'm going to play it again after midnight, so be sure you watch.
Definitely.
All right.
I've definitely also noticed some stuff on this date, and I was wondering James' comments on it.
Okay.
I have to say that as a mystic and a psychic, I mean, my heart chakra has just been cracked open all day. And I've noticed, too, with some of my sixth sense that, I don't know if anybody's studied mysticism out there, but when in your sixth sense and your third eye, when you see the energy that is around plants and the earth and animals and rocks, it kind of has a red, pinkish glow. I noticed today that it doesn't have that anymore. It's more of a golden yellowish color. It seems much more vibrant and lighter. I've also noticed I've seen dark energies just floating out of people and leaving over, I'd have to say, the last couple of days. But that's new for me, and I've felt that myself. And I'm wondering what James would think about that. I mean, I'd love to know. I'd love to know.
Okay.
Well, you're an empath, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
I would expect that of an empath because what do you have to do to see auras?
Pretty much nothing. Be very relaxed. I see the milky white auras all the time. The colored auras usually present to me when it's someone that I can help.
Do you ever see the yellow escaping through the red?
Pardon me? Yellow escaping?
Escaping through the red. Like light going through an object. What'll happen is this is stress, and it'll break through the red. It looks like radiance coming from the head, and it'll go through the aura, and it's very rare. But when it happens, that person is under severe stress. Probably going to become very ill.
Right. Is this something you've seen lately, or?
I was watching a special, and on this special, I won't say who it was or whatever because I'm undecided about it too. But there was an individual who was being questioned, who was a rather diabolical individual, and I could see that. And he was extremely stressed because he was being confronted by someone who wanted the truth and had a way of getting it. And I would expect that individual now is coming down with flu or something, because that is lost energy, and it's rare. But usually an aurora conforms to the body.
Right.
And the bands of the colors indicate health, or they indicate sickness, or they indicate
I've noticed that people that are very evil, or would actually more cold, like have no soul, have a very top-heavy aura.
Yeah.
And it's like they live all up there, and there's nothing else. I've seen that, and I've seen people without. Well, I've seen a lot of strange things. But I've definitely been experiencing lately Now, I know this is gonna. I know this can sound strange, so everybody just turn away. I just want to talk to James. So nobody thinks I'm nuts.
You're going to have to move it along, though, because we do have to open it for other folks, too.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been feeling a lot of energy that's dark and negative leaving from the bottom of my feet. I'll just encapsulate it that way.
Well, that's good. That's good. That indicates that you are a person that is well grounded normally, and then something's been imposing itself on you to keep you in one place. It didn't want you to move from your position.
Okay. I wonder if it's connected with 2012, the change in the solar energy.
You're influencing someone that another person is concerned about you influencing.
How do you mean?
Well, are you giving someone counsel about their family or something?
Well, to tell you the truth, James, yeah, I've been very, this whole past, well, pretty much all of my life, they've really tried to make sure that I don't go into the public realm. Let's put it that way. And they've been very systematic about it, and it's been relentless.
Well, they're, you know that anybody that has any gifts,
yes,
is minimalized, and that they have routines that that's one reason why there's so many Masons in the police, in police administration.
How do you combat it?
Don't let it affect you.
I've been doing my best.
Just look up on it like a cloudy day, and just go on with whatever you're going to do. Don't let it deter you. Don't. You have a will. Use it. Don't abide it, and eventually it'll give up. It's a form of energy that they. I remember when I was 6 years old, a woman tried to kill me with a car.
Mm-hmm.
Looking straight in my eyes, veered in the direction that I was going to the curb. There was a young girl with me, and I turned to keep her out of the street and got hit and knocked me 20 feet. It was a hit and run. And so it turned out that eventually the woman showed up. My parents never would, this is a small town. My parents never would tell me who she was. But she told them that she was in a hurry to get to school and pick up her daughter. So they never pressed charges. As far as I know, nothing was ever done about a hit and run. And she hit me in a school zone, 15-mile-an-hour school zone. So, but that's the thing. Something took over that woman and purposefully directed her to hit me.
Okay. Lasha, I wish we had more time, but I do have to move along. I want to thank you so much for the call, but we, remember, are going 4 hours tonight, so you can call back in, okay? All right. We have a... I was going to read a flash message. Let's take this call. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling? Oh, hang on, caller. Let me push the correct button. There we go. Your first name and from where are you calling?
This is Ryan in Puget Sound.
Hello, Ryan.
Hey, James. How you doing?
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Happy Baktum to everybody.
Happy Baktum to you.
Yeah, happy Baktum.
Kevin, that singing was actually pretty good. I'd give yourself a little credit for that.
Oh man, are your ears broken?
No, I was expecting much worse.
Well, I'm glad you didn't. I'm glad I didn't meet your expectations in this case. But listen, I do make music, and I know what sounds awful, and that's awful.
Well, you were carrying a tune.
Anyway,
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to subject everyone to that torture once again after the midnight hour.
James, have you ever heard of the Dream Detective? He's a guy in the UK who actually, his dreams are so accurate. He has these dreams and he sees things and he writes it down. He's been so accurate that he's even been the intelligence agencies have used him. Even his name is oh God, now I'm having a oh gosh, now I'm gonna have to remember his name. I think it's Morrison.
Okay.
Anyway,
it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
He was studied by Dr. Oh my goodness, this is embarrassing. I'm losing all my memory here. Anyways, James, do you think that these intelligence agencies are approaching people that have gifted psychic abilities?
Yes. Yep.
To use them to take advantage of them?
Well, they are obsessed with knowing the potentials of certain phenotypes that can come about under stress, whatever stress. They don't tell you the truth about how traits might express that are normally genotypic. They don't express as a phenotype. But under certain stresses, that where this particular trait is very important to survival, they can express even when they don't have the normal genetic pairing on the allele to express that trait. They talk about mutation, but this exists too, and it's more common than mutation, and it's more directed. So this gentleman, right, that you're talking about, probably the real thing. Here in Dallas, there is a lady who is a real psychic. I think the lady that called in is a real psychic. But Maria in Dallas is extraordinary. There's 1 in 50 million like her, and she teaches how to read people to students, and she's talented, and she knows how to find talent. So, but to get to see Maria, you have to wait in line maybe for years. So,
Gary Schwartz, that's his name. Gary Schwartz is the guy who did a couple blind studies with this guy and tested to see if his dreams are accurate. Anyways, it's a fascinating thing. Seeing a couple of pictures on the internet, I guess there was quite a gathering down at the Mayan cities and at Stonehenge. A guy on Facebook was at Stonehenge. There was quite a gathering there, people just being there for the moment. Nothing bad's going to happen. It's just a new beginning. But I just wanted to call and chime in here. And I'd like to hear an update from Jerry Wills. Maybe he can call in later. Jerry, if you're listening, you got to call in.
He may be, but I'll tell you, he's been in a place where his cell phone service has been atrocious. So perhaps he can call, perhaps not.
James, what have you been up to lately? What things have you been working on? What have you been into some things that are sort of new that you haven't told us about yet? I'll just leave it up to the audience, and I'll get off the line and let the next caller come in.
All right, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Go ahead, James.
Well, I would like to say this, that you've heard me talk about EBs, the distinction I draw between EBs and ETs.
Yeah.
And, I also say that the military black ops is using EBs for their abductions, and that EBs are actually not hostile, but they're problematic. And up until it became clear that the powers that be are going to try to instrument the hostile ET presence or invasion or whatever as a false flag. Up until then, there was more or less a protocol observed by ET not to fire on EB craft that had a human aboard. But if these craft in order to give an illusion of an ET invasion or whatever, if they use EBs and they use their craft to fire on Earth, cities or people or whatever, ET is going to bring them down. And I'm saying this. I said this on another show earlier, and I'm saying it here. This is to the powers that be and their facilitators to discourage them from creating this theater of the absurd for the sake of humans that might be aboard those craft, and for trying to discourage them from this false flag operation I think that they are planning.
James, I wish we had more time, but we're just about out, just about to the next break. And I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us here on Baktum Eve.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of giving my message.
All right. You have a great evening and a happy Baktum. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be stepping away for a brief break in about 8 seconds. And when we come back, we'll be talking with another guest. And I think it's something that you're really going to like. You requested it. So you want to be sure and be here for that. All right, we'll be back right after this.
Hör ni mig? I dessa tider finns det flera viktiga frågor vi bör ställa oss. Hur kan du och jag och våra vänner och våra barn lita på att det vi ser på TV och hör på radio är sant? Och hur vet vi att våra åsikter är våra egna? Hur kan vi vara säkra på att de svaga rösterna kommer till tals istället för att skrämmas till tystnad? Jag kan tala om hur. Det finns en människa vi kan tacka för allt detta. Det är denna människa vi kan tacka för nya perspektiv. Det är denna människa vi kan tacka för att vi har en valmöjlighet. Det är denna människa som ger oss ett alternativ till likriktning och kortsiktighet. Det är denna människa vi kan tacka för att en vanlig dag kan bli en stor dag. En dag då vi reser oss ur tv-soffan och säger: jag har ändrat uppfattning. Det finns bara ett ord som ger denna människa rättvisa. Hjälp.
Kelly, and I'm calling from Florida, and you are listening to The Kevin Smith Show. Talk radio like nowhere else on earth, healing medicine for the mind.
You don't know why.
And welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. This evening we are celebrating Baktum. Happy Baktum to everyone. This happens every 394.25 years, or if you're counting days, every 144,000 days. This long count calendar of the Mayans flips over to a new Baktum, just like December the 31st. Our calendar will flip over to a new year. So this is Baktum Eve, and we're celebrating it together here at the Kevin Smith Show. We're doing a number of things, including bringing you some of the guests you asked for and some you didn't, but who have the information you asked for. You didn't mention by name, but you mentioned the information. This is one that was mentioned by name, and the information was requested. Mentioned by name in some email requests. And joining us now is John Ventry. John, happy Baktum.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me back on.
Well, you're certainly welcome. You know, there's no one living on the planet right now, John, who has ever celebrated Baktum.
I agree.
Yeah, and there is no one living now who will be here to celebrate it again. So this is really special. And, you know, I'm a little surprised. What is your part of the country?
I'm in the Pittsburgh area.
Well, did Pittsburgh have like some Baktum parades today and a big fireworks show tonight?
No, they didn't. Actually, you're the only person that's come up with that concept, so I applaud you.
Well, you know, it only happens every 394.25 years. I think it's kind of special. So, you know, I'm just trying to wish everyone in the world a happy Baktum. You know, after midnight, we'll be into the 14th Baktum. Right now, we're still in the 13th, but very shortly, we'll be into the 14th. You're in the Eastern time zone, aren't you?
Yes.
See, so it's just a few minutes for you. In just a few minutes, you're going to be into the 14th Baktum before the rest of us who are, you know, west of you.
Yep, 26 minutes.
26. It's exciting, isn't it? Do you have some fireworks at home that you could set off?
No, it's just me and my 90-pound Doberman and my guns and rifles.
Oh, well, you could do like they do in some parts of the world and go outside and fire your guns in the air then, you know, when you...
I actually saved that for 4th of July when nobody can tell the difference. But I don't fire them in the air. You know, I actually go out and seriously, I go out and buy a watermelon and put it on a stake, and from my deck I shoot it with my shotgun, but you can't tell because it's 4th of July.
Oh, well, see? Now we found out something we didn't know.
And now I can't do that next year.
At least not in that location you can't.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, John, you know, leading up to today, December the 21st, for years now, we've been seeing specials on TV. We've been hearing conference speakers. Books have been published. People appearing on radio and talking about all of the great catastrophes that are going to happen. And I'm still saying, though I don't think they're going to happen, the fat lady didn't sing yet, and we're not out of December 21st yet. So it still could happen, but I don't think it will. Now, the Mayans, I mean, this is all about the Mayan calendar, and then some people kind of interpreted some of the Mayan prophecy related to this day, the Baktum Eve. And their interpretation of that was that, you know, all of these very dire things would happen. At first, you know, I'll be honest, at first I said, you know, I don't know. I haven't read enough. I don't know enough. And so I'm open. Maybe, you know, I don't know. But I eventually got to the point where I was saying, and still maintain, that the significance of December 21st is that it comes before December 22nd. I think that's it. I don't think there's any other significance. And I will continue to say I could be wrong, but I don't think so. If I thought I was wrong, I wouldn't be saying that. What about you?
Yeah, well, you know, Kevin, the Mayans never said that there was going to be a disaster on December 21st. That whole thing, you know, I wish I could say it was made in America like most of the entertainment out there is, but pretty close. I mean, there were other civilizations, though, that did predict catastrophes like the Hopis, et cetera, et cetera. But when you talk about the Mayans, they never said anything was going to happen December 21st. Now, there is a big significance to their, you know, their calendars and the basically the 26,000 year calendar, that one. And it does have a huge significance. There were two things that the Mayans said, and it's funny that nobody talks about it. They just wanted to harp on the fact that, well, the calendar ends, so that means it must be destruction. Well, the calendar ends because it repeats every 26,000 years. And we've gone into the 5th cycle of that, so which means that their calendar has been around for 4 cycles of 100, well, I guess 104,000 years, and we're going into the 5th one. But the two important things that I wish people would have given the Mayans credit for and talk about is, how did they know that the Earth, the precession, was a 26,000 year cycle? And
that's
what
a
that
great
means,
question.
yeah, I mean, like, you're talking about the Stone Age people. I mean, they didn't just pick 26,000 years, you know, out of a frickin' coconut.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a reason they said that. And you got to understand, these are Stone Age people 1,000 years ago, maybe 1,050 years ago, and they picked this date of December 21st, 2012, which happens to be, you know, the shortest day of the year as far as the sunlight goes, etc. But if you look at the Earth, when we rotate, there's a wobble to the Earth, and every 72 years we kind of shift on our axis by 1 degree. So like our longitude and latitude, if you take it out 1,000 years, 5,000 years, we're not in the same place. There are times North America is, you know, a couple of 100 miles north or a couple of 100 miles south, maybe even, you know, more than that, 1,000 miles. But you don't see the same sky. Like if you look at the sky right now, that's a different star system than you saw during Egyptian times with the pyramids, different than 10,000 BC. But they knew that the Earth took 26,000 years to complete one cycle, that you're back to where you started again. And that is an absolute, you know, astronomical physics. It's a fact. And they got it right. So really the question is, and the second thing they got right was in their sacred text, the Popol Vuh, they said that there was a dark rift in the center of the sky. And about 30 years ago with our satellites, we found a black hole in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. So those are the two things that a Stone Age civilization got right, and we should be discussing really how did they know that. And I know the answer to that, but that's really the credit the Mayans get. And they believed everything was cyclical. Reincarnation, everything repeats on a cycle. Their numbering system was repeated itself. You know, it didn't just go out to infinity in a straight line. It was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that type of deal. And everything to them was a repeat and circular.
So how did they know? I mean, we call that 26,000 year cycle. We call it the Great Year. How did they know about that?
Yeah. Well, when I researched it, and because that's a question I had. Okay. Well, they picked this procession, this thing that's totally correct on the movement of the Earth to complete one cycle. And the other part was, we're every 26,000 years, we are in the exact center plane of the Milky Way galaxy when the sun rises. So that wasn't just an accident. But the real question, which same thing question I asked is, okay, where'd they get this knowledge from? Because they didn't figure it out themselves, And if you look in their sacred text, the Popol Vuh, it says that they got it from a person by the name of Kukulkan Khan. He was a Caucasian male, blonde hair, blue eyes, an elongated skull, and he was from the stars. And he just kind of showed up on the shores of, Central America where they're located. And he walked into their community. They had never seen a white person before, and he had all this knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, dentistry. All of a sudden they're building suspension bridges, and they're doing surgery.
Wait a minute. The Mayans built suspension bridges.
Well, over like rivers and little suspension bridges that would hold up, and they could walk across, rivers and small gaps, let's say, in the mountains. They didn't build the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, but I'm just saying they figured out the concept of how to build a suspension bridge across, gaps, let's say. And
and then in their territory, there are a lot of places with big gaps. Tell you what, let's very quickly take this telephone call, and we'll come right back to what you're talking about, because it may be a question about something you've said.
Okay.
Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Yeah, Kevin, Jeff, this is Rusty from Michigan.
Yeah. How you doing? This is it's Kevin and John Ventry.
Oh, John.
Yeah.
Where'd I get Jeff?
I don't know.
Too much partying.
Do what?
Too much partying.
Oh, you think? Big Baktum party tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my question does have something. I'm not having a big party, no. I'm just kind of sitting here doing what I always do, looking at my computer and playing, what is it I'm playing? I can't remember. Some kind of, Spider Solitaire.
Oh, okay. All right.
But, you mentioned about, he's talking about these men. Now, and Kevin, you mentioned about this 144,000 as a Baktum. Mm-hmm. Do you think that possibly this 144,000 is what could be considered as a day, and that these men, the coming of like messiahs and that sort of thing, has something to do with this 144,000 or Baktum day?
Well, Rusty, I have no idea. But let's throw that. I'm going to punt. Let's throw that over to John. John, the 144,000 days, I had in the hours before you came on, I had mentioned that's interesting because you see that number 144,000 in the Bible. You see it in some Christian denominations. I think it shows up in some other ancient writings, 144,000. And if you add the numbers together, you get 9, which in many cultures is a sacred number. So what do you think? Do you think there's some significance to it?
Well, Herod, remember when Jesus was born, he wanted to kill the firstborn, and he wanted to kill 144,000 virgins or children, Mm-hmm. So there probably is some significance to that. When I hear 144, I think it's a gross. 12 dozen is 144. That's the only significance I really know of it. But I don't know if there's a major significance there with the Mayans and the return of any prophets. Kukulkan Khan, when he showed up and gave them all of the knowledge that they ended up getting rapidly, he left and said that he would be back in 500 years. So, there was no mention of 144.
All right, we have to step away for a break, and we shall return right after this break. Welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show, and happy Baktum Eve to all of you. Let me remind you, this normally I would be saying we're on final approach. We're in the last 15 minutes of our normal programming, but we're going 2 more hours tonight in celebration of Baktum Eve. And if you've just tuned in, you don't know what Baktum Eve is, you just stay tuned. I'll explain it again later. But this is an especially important event, Baktum Eve. No one living on this planet has ever celebrated Baktum, because the last one was 394.25 years ago. No one living now and celebrating Baktum now is going to be around to celebrate it next time. So it's important, okay? My guest at the moment is John Ventry, and we have Rusty on the telephone, and I sort of had to cut us all off because the break took over. So, Rusty, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right. John, you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. So the 144,000 is maybe some significance, but you're not aware of any specific significance, John.
No.
But you started to say something about, you said Kukulkan Khan said he would return in 500 years. So let me ask you a question. If you will, describe for us, who is Kukulkan Khan?
Okay. Well, Kukulkan Khan, as I said, had showed up on the shores of Central America. He said he was from the stars. What I believe was an extraterrestrial, and he gave them all the knowledge of the calendar, astronomy. Really kind of upgraded their society with engineering, some medical stuff, and mathematics and the calendar. So, but when he left, and that's probably about 950, 980 A.D. He said he would be back in 500 years, and he left. And they had never seen like I said, he was a Caucasian male, blonde hair, blue eyes, but he had an elongated skull. And you start to see in their society and African societies like the Dogons in West Africa, they start to strap boards on the heads of their children and tie them on tight to try to create that elongated skull, because they revered these people as gods. And the Mayans, made Kukulkan Khan one of their gods. And he said he'd be back in 500 years, but unfortunately in 1519, Cortez shows up. The Mayan civilization at that point had pretty much fallen apart. There's still Mayans, there are Mayans today. But back then they were not the dominant society in 1500. It was the Aztecs, but they knew of all the legends. And when Cortez shows up, he's a Caucasian male, obviously. They thought it was the return of Kukulkan Khan, and the Aztec leader actually was the biggest proponent that this was Kukulkan Khan. I mean, I'm simplifying that because there was a lot of fighting took place, and Cortez, sided with the local Indians that were fighting the Aztecs. So there was a lot more to the story, but that was what happened with Kukulkan Khan. But that's where all this knowledge that the Mayans got came from. And I wish somebody could tell us, where did the knowledge that the Egyptians got, where did that come from? Where all of a sudden a primitive society, starts building pyramids and becomes an advanced society for that time period. But the same thing happened with the Mayans.
Rusty, do you have another question or a comment?
No, just a comment.
Uh-huh.
When I watched you playing your music there and singing, what I noticed was you were actually playing a G on your guitar and singing in G, so you've had some kind of practice somewhere.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I can sing. No, that's actually me playing that guitar. And I mean, what you heard is me playing it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't play the drums.
Because,
yeah, I didn't play the drums, but the guitar part you heard, that's me playing it, and then I put the rather terrifying vocals down on top of it.
You did pretty good. You know, they have those, what do they call those things? They correct your pitch. In other words, if you sing flat, they bring it up to your key. You should use one of those if you're shy about your singing.
I'm not shy about it. I just warn people.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. You get what you get when you get me, and that's what you get. You know. All right, man. Thanks for the call, and I appreciate that compliment. If you saw that video earlier, folks, where I took a Kevinism, you know, I have these little sayings, I call them Kevinisms, and they actually are pillars of my basic philosophy about everything. I took one of those and turned it into a song, especially for tonight, and I videotaped, and I played and I sang, and I mean, the way it actually happens is you record it, the audio first, and then you do the video, you know, and you lay the vocals down separately and all that. So I did all that, and that is actually me playing the guitar, and that is actually me terrifying you with my vocals. And I will terrify the rest. I'm going to give you bad dreams because after midnight I'm going to play it again. But I thought that particular Kevinism fit tonight, so there you go. If you missed it, well, you get another shot at hearing it, and it'll be late enough. All the little children will be in bed, so I don't have to issue that caution, because you don't want to terrify the little children. And it's not the message of the song that will terrify them. It's just, you know, my screeching to it. So, John, this Kukulkan Khan figure, you think was extraterrestrial?
Yeah, they said he was from the stars, and you know, his description with the elongated skull. You know, and my interpretation, though, is that he would be an extraterrestrial. Now, I mean, he could be. Maybe there's another you know, species or race on this planet, like the Vril that Hitler believed in. You know, down in Antarctica, or you know, it could be from another dimension. I don't really know, but I know that, you know, like the Dogons who knew about the Sirius star system and the Nomo that came from it. You know, Kukulkan Khan came from the stars. And so, you know, I'm just assuming there that they're talking about an extraterrestrial.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough. I mean, it certainly was not one of the local native indigenous people there. So, all right, let's go to the telephone. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Yeah. Happy Baktum, Kevin. This is Mike from Kentucky.
Well, happy Baktum to you too, sir.
You know, you're pretty quick on the trigger when you ask for those call-ins to give you a name of something that you might have be singing about. Because I was dialing it, and it was in the process of dialing, you hung up.
Well, you know, let me explain what happens. What I'm saying right now, you're seeing and hearing a few seconds later.
Right, I understand that.
And,
it's on delay.
Yeah, and I have to stick with this clock that's on this computer over here. So sometimes it does that. It kind of makes it seem like there's not much time. By the time you hear about it, I'm already moving on, you know. And it's a little bit of a problem, but yeah, we get through it.
Well, I would have dialed quicker.
So what was your guess? What was your guess as to what Kevinism I was going to use?
I guessed exactly what you were saying about.
Oh,
because
cool.
I know that's your favorite Kevinism. You call live till you don't.
Well, it's not necessarily my favorite, but it is the one that I've used the most recently because we were approaching December 21st.
Well, you know, it's easy for somebody to tell you after the fact that they said that, but you know.
I believe you, though, Mike. Why wouldn't I believe you? I believe you.
I appreciate it. This Kukulkan Khan, was he been, because of his white skin and all that, would he also been Quetzalcoatl?
No, those were two separate gods that they had. And I can't really tell you what the difference. I know they were separate, but, you know, back then they had never seen a Caucasian male. You know, he had blue eyes, he had long blonde hair, but he had that crazy elongated skull, and they made him a god. But that's a different god than Quetzalcoatl, and you'd have to look up what that god stood for, but I know they were separate.
Yeah. One of the things, too, is that I had just been given a link yesterday, I think it was, to some archaeology that they've done and are doing in Mexico, and they found a skull that was elongated, just like what you're talking about now.
Actually, we're going to talk about that after once we want to get everything we can, all the information we can from John. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to show a picture of that after John's segment here. They found 23 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me get off here, Kevin, so John can get on, and good show, and I'll be here till the end if I don't fall apart.
Okay. I hope you don't fall apart. Thanks for the call. Well, John, are you familiar with that story that he was talking about? They found a cemetery with a very ancient cemetery, pre-Columbian, in northern Mexico, and actually there's 23 skeletons, and I think they said 18 of the 23 have the elongated skulls.
Yeah, I saw that actually 2 days ago when the story, I guess, first came out. A couple of different people emailed it to me, and you know how it, things happen in coincidence. I'm actually working with a TV show right now, hoping that it'll become a regular series on TV.
Hang on just 1 second. I just looked at the clock, and let me say to our affiliate stations that have to leave us, thank you for being here, and I wish you could stay. But thank you much. We are continuing on with our celebration of Baktum Eve here at the Kevin Smith Show. All right, John, you were saying about TV.
Yeah, well, it's funny how things come in coincidences. I get that article, showing those skulls, the elongated skulls, and the day before, I was working with a TV show kind of on a demo, a pilot for a series, and we were talking about Nordics, and I said, you have to show them with the elongated skull, and I'm trying to convince the producer that that's what they should look like. So I get that article, I forwarded it to the producer and said, look, this is what they look like with the elongated skulls, They didn't look exactly like us, they didn't look totally human. So, when the Mayans saw this guy, and the other thing I said too, the blue eyes, that they didn't have whites to their eyes. They were solid blue eyes. It was blue, the whole thing. So you can imagine the Mayans, never seeing a Caucasian male, sees this guy walk up. He was probably, if he's anything like the Nordics, they were over 6 feet tall, muscular, solid blue eyes with no whites, no eyebrows, and an elongated skull with long blonde hair. So they didn't know what to do but make him a god.
Well, now look, I had never heard that about Kukulkan, about the eye, the whole eye being blue, solid blue. I had never heard that.
I'm hearing that more and more now with people who claim to come in contact with extraterrestrials that or have that Nordics, that there's no white to their eyes. It's all blue. So you can imagine how that would freak somebody out. You look at somebody's eyes and it's all solid color.
Yeah.
They got this elongated skull sticking up like the alien creature, not that big. But
do you know who Jerry Wills is?
No, I don't.
Well, Jerry is the associate host here at this show. He's also the executive producer at Expeditions TV. And Jerry is almost 7 feet tall.
Wow.
He has very long blonde hair down past his shoulders, except once in a while he cuts it back up to shoulder length. Blue eyes, and with Expeditions TV, they've done quite a number of expeditions down in the Mayan territories, and in extreme, not the places where the tourists always go, extremely remote places, remote canyons and jungles and stuff.
Yeah.
And he, on occasion, has to convince these people in small towns and villages back in these remote places that he is not one of the gods that has come back.
Yeah.
And he tells a story about Tecoche Valley. And when he entered a particular town, he said people were running inside and closing the doors and closing the shutters, and and he had to meet with some people and convince them that he's just a guy, just a big guy who happens to have blonde hair. He's not one of the gods coming back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're, as human beings, we're kind of funny. I remember seeing news clips of during World War II on some of those Pacific islands where our planes landed, and we got some of the local natives to help us unload, using their labor. And, it was all during the battle with the Japanese. And after we left, nobody went back to those islands for years. And they had built a wooden and straw airplane that they were worshiping because they had no idea how this thing was flying, and they viewed it as gods. But that's, the world's a funny place. I mean, we're so modern here in the U.S., but there's probably 30% of the world that's still primitive. They don't have the internet. They don't have, running water, electricity. We're just very fortunate where we live.
Something, as modern as we think we are, I mean, I've lived all over the world, and I've compared us to a whole bunch of different places around the world. And I've either lived in, worked in, or traveled extensively in about 30 countries. So I say all over the world. Not haven't been nearly to every country, but I've been around the world, And in fact, my home is on the other side of the planet. From where I am now. So as modern as we think we are, I'm betting, and I'm usually pretty accurate on these things, but we just have to see, if a big UFO were to show up and over a major city and just land, and the people get out, and at first maybe a few people try to attack them, and they use some kind of, high tech to stop them. Maybe a force field or something. There would be a bunch of people around this country that would start worshiping them as gods.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that if there was a situation like that, our biggest threat may not be their technology or their weapons. It may be loyalty, with the people, the humans that side with them, against the rest of us. Because it always happens. It happens in every war. It happened with the Nazis. It happens with communism. It happens with everything. There's a mental thing with us that there's, left wing, right wing. Some people have to be part of a group, and some people have to belong to some sort of religion and believe in a higher power. So, I agree with you. I think that our biggest problem may be traitors to humans and loyalty, as many people would side with them and worship them and say, turn in all your guns because they won't harm us. Well, I got news for you. The Second Amendment's a doomsday amendment, and you ain't getting my guns.
Well, our biggest enemy is us. It always is.
Yep.
And, there's no aliens killing humans right now as far as we know, but there's a whole bunch of humans killing humans out there right now.
Yep.
And our biggest enemy is always us, and culturally that's true as well. John, is there any prophecies or anything about this upcoming? Oh, by the way, you're into Baktum 14, aren't you?
Yeah, I was going to say it's already 12:08 over here, so I'm into December 22nd. And some of the prophecies and I think there was even an X-Files show that said on December 22nd, 2012 was when the gods would return, meaning possibly extraterrestrials and spaceships and aliens. So I'm already there. So if it wasn't snowing and cloudy, I could look outside and see if I see one, but I've never seen one.
All right. If you do spot any gods, I mean, you're an hour ahead of us, so if you spot any gods returning, will you be sure and let us know?
Yeah, I'll let you know what direction they're flying in.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of something else with that Coco Khan. You know what was interesting? When he showed up, the king was of the Mayans was Pakal, P-A-C-A-L, King Pakal. He himself was said to have been a giant, like your boss, 7-8 feet tall, like the size of Shaquille O'Neal. But if you look at King Pakal's tomb, he's the one that has that big cover to his sarcophagus, and it shows him sitting on some sort of a vehicle with a mouthpiece, like a breathing apparatus. There's some sort of smoke, an exhaust coming out of the back, and his hands and feet are on pedals and steering type devices. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I am. In fact, I did a show on that.
Yeah. Well, that was the king that was there at the time of Coco Khan when he showed up, was King Pakal, and it's the strangest cover to a sarcophagus. Even the Egyptians didn't have a cover like that for King Tut or any of their gods. But the Mayan king kind of looks like he's either riding a Harley or he's got some sort of spacecraft he's controlling.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I'll tell you something about Pakal that's interesting as well. Every single depiction of him shows the bridge of his nose, or the top ridge of his nose that comes up, and with you, me, and everybody else, it ends right between our eyes. With Pakal, it goes right up his forehead and up in the middle of his head. That ridge goes all the way up. And every single picture. Now, some people say, oh, well, you know, they just weren't good artists. Nonsense.
Yeah.
They were great artists. And that same feature does not show up on other people. It shows up on Pakal.
Yeah, if they can build those temples and everything else, I guarantee you they didn't get his nose wrong. And if they did get his nose wrong, they take him down to the ball court and pull their heart out.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did.
Yeah, and so, you know, I have wondered whether he was, you know, fully human or not.
Yeah.
So, you know, he might have been, you know, perhaps a hybrid.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny when I bring up this elongated skull, that's like people, I guess they're not that familiar with it, but, you know, like Queen Nefertiti, I'm pretty certain she was supposed to have the elongated skull also.
She did, at least all the depictions of her and the statues of her, yes.
Yeah.
The Akhenaten, who was her husband, he did. Their children did. They seem to be, you know, full-blood long heads.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if anybody's ever really done a study on that, because that might be what they look like. You know, maybe that is the Nordic look, the extraterrestrial look, is this elongated skull. And when a society comes into contact with them, they try to emulate it and copy it. Or some of these people who have been kings and queens like Nefertiti, maybe they were the offspring of a union between an extraterrestrial and a human.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. All right, let's go to the telephone. Caller, you're live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Jerome from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Jerome.
Hi, Mr. Ventry.
Hi.
The one point I want to make is you said if a UFO would show up, that people would start thinking of these aliens as gods.
No, I said that.
Okay. The only thing I want to say about that is if anybody comes in any type of craft, I'm not going to think of that person as a god.
Well, that's because you're one of those enlightened individuals who listens to the Kevin Smith Show.
Well, even more so than that, I think with our, like we've had Star Trek and all those other ones, almost everybody, I think more people would just think of these people as ETs.
Well, I think you're correct for people who are used to thinking about this already. But there is, while I think the movie Independence Day was a great thriller, action movie, it was very interesting, I don't buy the reality of the plot. However, there's a very interesting scene in that movie that I think is 100% accurate. And that is, you have these gigantic ships hovering over the cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, the official statement is, everybody please stay inside. Don't be getting out, unless it's absolutely necessary. Well, a whole bunch of people go downtown and get on top of all these buildings, and some people are praying to these things. They're all cheering. They're holding up signs and saying, "Take me, take me." But then you have a certain amount of the population that are saying, "You know what? We don't know what's going to happen, and we need to just stay away from those things." Well, of course, then the movie shows that these things open up and the people start really cheering. They think it's just going to be fun and games, and it's going to be, the gods have come, and then these blast beams come out and destroy the city. You're going to have people that are going to be out there on their hands and knees, hands raised, praising these things. Human nature resorts to that once it's emotionally overwhelmed.
And I think, Kevin, it depends on what they say to us. What if they show up, and then, we say, well, where are you from? And they say, well, our planet is a place called heaven. And, well, what's your purpose here? And they say, well, we created you. We're your parents. We've sowed the seeds of life throughout the universe, and now we're back to weed our crops. You don't think people are going to drop to their knees and pray and worship them? It all depends on the message that they say. But, I've spoken to so many small groups and individuals, and you can just see among the group of 20 or so, there are some that they just want to believe, they just want to follow. And, as human beings, we're all equal under the law, but I'm not sure I've met anybody that's actually equal to another person. We are so diverse in the way we think and the things we believe. I mean, you see it in politics every day. You're going to get 10%. There's always 10, 15% is going to go this way, that way, that way, that way. There's no consensus with human beings at all on anything.
Yeah.
I agree with Mr. Ventry on that. Just to change the subject a little bit, are we really in the 14th Baktum? By that I mean there's been the Gregorian calendar is not supposed to be accurate. So really, are we there yet, or have we passed it years ago? Or are we in that point in space at this time right now?
Well, I had read, I don't think it was the 1500s when we switched from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, and we moved New Year's from April 1st to January 1st. And I did read that we lost 11, I believe it was 11 days in the calendar. But I'm not sure that the Mayans actually needed that Gregorian calendar to be correct. Because, somebody else said to me, well, the calendar's not right because of leap year. And since their calendar started in 3114 BC, they screwed up the whole leap year thing because the Romans discovered leap year and added it to the calendar in 46 BC. But one of the things they get wrong there is that they didn't create that calendar in 3114. They created it right around 1000 AD. And, they got the knowledge from Coco Khan. So I don't know that, the Gregorian calendar matters. And if they can back then 1,000 years ago be so accurate, I mean, they got it right. Today was the day.
I read an article about that today, Jerome, and our calendar's wrong, theirs isn't. However, using our calendar and accounting for its errors December 21st, 2012, according to this article, does match the end of this Baktum on their calendar.
Okay, that pretty much answers my question there. Mr. Ventry, I've talked with you in the past. I've always enjoyed it, and thank you for being a guest. And I pretty much agree with everything you said this evening. And thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Well, make sure you come to one of our conferences here. We do Pittsburgh, Philly, and now we're going to do Erie starting in May.
How would I get information on that?
Just MUFONPA.com, Mutual UFO Network PA.com, MUFONPA.com. We do 3 conferences around the state.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ventry.
You're welcome,
Kevin.
All right. Okay, the telephone lines do remain open, and Mr. Ventry is going to have to leave us soon. So if you have a question or a comment for John Ventry, now is the time for you to call 623-444-5889. The flash message line is open as well for those of you who are outside of the USA and outside of Canada. We do have a flash message from New Zealand, and I want to go ahead and read that. It's been holding for a little bit. Bob over in New Zealand, he says, "Hi Kevin, Bob here from New Zealand. I'm glued to the KSS, eating chocolate biscuits, drinking splendid cups of tea, and one of my cats is sitting on my knee. Very excited about tonight's show, which I've been looking forward to. This is the only way to celebrate Baktum Eve. I am a recent new member to the KSS, and it is the best early Christmas present I ever," it says, "shouted myself." Okay, I'm not sure what that means, but okay. Kind regards, happy Baktum Eve and season's greetings to all. Bob, happy Baktum Eve to you too. And we're delighted to have you as a new member. 623-444-5889. We've got, say, 9 minutes or so before Mr. Ventry has to leave us. So now is the time if you want to call. If you wait till it's a minute before he leaves, I'm afraid he's not going to have the time. And we're only 5 minutes away from a break, so you got to account for that too. So you got about 5 minutes here. John, none of the worrisome, fearful things that were predicted for December 21st seem to have happened. However, one of the theories is this signals the beginning of an era in which those things begin to happen. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, that's very possible. You know, Revelations never put a date to it. And, you know, at some point you're going to get into that, you know, the Antichrist and everything else if you believe in Revelations. And, you know, I keep thinking of all these coincidences, like Father Malachi with his papal prophecy when he said that there will be 266 popes. And there happened to be 266 columns at the Vatican. And he said there's going to be 266 popes, and the naming of the 266 pope would start the end of days. And we're actually at Pope 265 right now. So maybe December 21st wasn't significant. Maybe it's the start of a cycle that's going to take us into a destructive period. But, you know, even Nostradamus, the Bible, I think it all talks about then having 1,000 years of peace. So we're going to have to go through a little bit of a cleansing before we get to 1,000 years of peace.
Yeah, and you know, I've mentioned that on the show before. The primary reason that I didn't think anything was going to happen today is because none of the astronomers, including amateur astronomers, were seeing anything that looked like it could do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The secondary reason is because all the ancient prophecies talk about this 1,000 years. And so, you know, I have said if the if the end kicks off tomorrow, you still got 1,000 years, so it's not the end of the world.
I take Kevin, my biggest fear is that supervolcano in Yellowstone or an asteroid strike. Because if you remember last week in the newspaper, Monday, they told us an asteroid just passed by on Saturday with 2 days' notice. So our, Project Space Guard is not that good in identifying asteroids. And that Yellowstone supervolcano that thing is just lethal. And unfortunately, there's 3 supervolcanoes of the 7 around the world. 3 are in the United States, and Yellowstone is the most active. And that's the one thing that really, really scares me, and scares me for this country, because there's no other country that could take us on. I actually read that the USS Ronald Reagan has as much firepower as the whole country of China. But if that supervolcano went off, we would be in serious shape. It would take out the whole breadbasket of the country under 8 feet of ash, and then you get all the acid rain around the world, killing crops and plankton in the oceans. And it happens. It's an absolute scientific fact. Last one that happened was 72,000 years ago in Indonesia, and we were down to just a few thousand humans left on the planet at that time.
There are a lot of things on this planet and in this universe that can take us out. I mean, it's a miracle that we're here. That's why, John, I say this, and I know there are people that think, oh, that's just kind of a woo-woo thing. No, I mean it quite literally. When you get up in the morning, you could have died last night, and you didn't. You get up in the morning, you won. It's an absolute miracle that we're still here. And, I don't... It's like the song I wrote. I'm not looking for doomsday, but then again, I'm not trying to die. It'll happen. It's going to come for us.
Every day above ground's a good day.
Yeah, it's going to come for us. But today, I'm too busy to die. Well, listen, I want to thank you for being with us this evening. It's been fascinating, man. Thanks for spending Baktum Eve with us.
Yeah, and if anybody's interested in, I just published 2 new books. They're on my website, johnventry.com.
Well, go ahead and tell us the names of them.
Well, one is UFOs over Pennsylvania, 560 pages, 90 photographs. And the other one is called Apophis 2029, which is that real asteroid that's coming past us every 7 years, getting closer and closer. I wrote a sci-fi book called Apophis 2029, where the asteroid strikes. And we go through a whole scenario.
All right, then. And it's at johnventry.com?
Yes.
All right.
And Kindle and Nook, they're out there.
Fantastic. One quick question. Have you seen any gods returning yet?
No, it's too dark.
Okay. Well, look, after you clear off the air here, and, in the few minutes or so before you go to bed, if you see any, will you call us?
I will send you a little text or message there on Skype. Absolutely.
Okay. I appreciate it. John, thanks for being with us.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. There you have it, folks. John Ventry, and spending Baktum Eve with us. It's already the 14th Baktum where he is. And in just a few minutes, it's going to be the 14th Baktum where I am. That means we will, in just a few minutes, we will pass midnight here. And when we do, we'll be into December the 22nd, which will be the 14th Baktum. All right, we're going to step away for a break, and we shall return right after this.
everywhere I turn, I just got burned, looking for a rainy day. And she stepped out on the street right in front of me. I couldn't believe my eyes. With the sexy long legs and long black hair, just imagine my surprise. I'm thinking just my life. Stop and look into my eyes. I'm dead for a while. Stop and laugh and smile. Oh my, I think I just my life. Stop and look into my eyes. I won't come and introduce myself, 'cause I would be suicide. She's so hot and the air is on fire, and I don't have a place to hide. My feet just stopped and my heart just froze. She's turning to look my way. I'm not drunk, but my whole world's spinning. I'm about to pity away. I'm thinking just my life. Stop and look into my eyes. I've been dead for a while. Stop and laugh and smile. Oh my, I'm thinking just my life. Stop and look into my eyes.
right, welcome back as we continue Baktum Eve celebration here at the Kevin Smith Show. If you're in the Central Time Zone, we'll be going till 1 o'clock in the morning. If you're out on the Pacific Coast, we'll be going to midnight. Now, I'm in the Central Time Zone, and so we're 34 minutes past 11 o'clock in the Central Time Zone. And right about midnight, I am going to play for you again this song that I wrote. And, I've played 3 songs tonight that I'm the co-writer of. Last Call, I played. I may play that one again. And I've played Vampire Lady, and then I played, you just heard, I Think I Just Might Die, the one right before UFO Day. So I'm the co-writer of those. But I wrote one especially for tonight's show. And I used one of my Kevinisms that you hear me say frequently. And I made that into a song for tonight's show. It's a real simple little song, nothing elaborate, but I just decided to take that and sort of elaborate a little bit with the words. And but it's especially for tonight. Now, I told you that the telephone lines would be open all the way through the show, or most of the show, and they are. So you can call at any time. You don't have to wait for me to say the phone lines are open. The phone lines are open. And it's free to watch, so hopefully you're watching the show, and if so, the telephone number's right there on your screen. How do you watch the show? Well, you go to my website, kevinsmithshow.com. Click where it says watch. Pretty simple. The telephone number is 623-444-5889, 623-444-5889. Now, I said also a few moments ago that I would explain, if you don't understand what a Baktum is and what is all this happy Baktum Eve and all that, well, whether you know it or not, we are on Baktum Eve. So now let me explain for those who don't know what that is, what that is. The ancient Mayan civilization had these calendars. They had a bunch of them that measured different cycles. And the long count calendar measured 1 Baktum, like our calendar measures 1 year. Well, 1 Baktum, for the thing to complete a cycle and be back at where it starts, 1 Baktum equals 144,000 days. Or, if you put that in years, 394.25. 394.25 years. So there's no one on the planet right now who ever has celebrated a Baktum Eve or New Baktum. The last time anybody celebrated that was 394.25 years ago, 144,000 days previous to today. So there's no one here now who has ever celebrated a Baktum. That's why it is important. You're not going to ever get the chance to celebrate Baktum again. This is it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime event for you. There will be many lifetimes lived and expired before the next Baktum can be celebrated. So lots and lots of folks have looked at December the 21st, which is the end of this Baktum, Baktum 13. We're entering into Baktum 14. Out on the East Coast, you're already in Baktum 14. Around on the other side of the planet, you've been in Baktum 14 for many hours. Some of us are awaiting the arrival of Baktum 14. So happy Baktum Eve to you. Everybody all around the world are happy Baktum, new Baktum, for those of you who are already celebrating it and have already experienced it. Let's go to the telephone. Caller, you are live on the Kevin Smith Show. Your first name and from where are you calling?
Kevin, this is Jerome from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Jerome.
I wanted to tell you, I forgot to tell you last time that you did do a good job on your singing.
Oh, man, you guys have terrible taste.
Well, I hate to say this, it kind of reminded me of Burt Bacharach.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Burt Bacharach, I think his music and lyrics came from his heart, but then it stopped at his vocal cords.
Yeah.
I say that jokingly.
Yeah, well, you know, Burt Bacharach is dead, so so I would have to say, yeah, I kind of sound like a dead guy singing.
Hey, listen, your last guest, Mr. Ventry, I just went online and ordered his book, UFOs Over Pennsylvania, and I was happy to see that it was a current book.
Uh-huh.
And living in Pennsylvania, I was a little bit interested in it. He and you mentioned this Lord Bacall.
Yeah.
Who was the other guy that John mentioned?
Well, he mentioned he thinks an extraterrestrial, but by the name of Kukulkan, who was a god of, the Mayan people received him, and Lord Bacall received him as a god, that may be, or is that who you were thinking of?
Yes, it is. I was thinking, if this Lord Bacall, if he was an ET also, because of his elongated head and his nose bridge that you spoke of, wouldn't he consider this Kukulkan a rival?
Unless he considered him a superior in their ranks.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that may be the case. Lord Bacall, we know who his mother was. We know who was supposed to be his father. However, there's some sort of legends about his mom having sort of a miraculous birth here.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe he is a hybrid. Maybe Bacall is a hybrid. And, who knows? Kukulkan may be his real dad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I just didn't understand the connection. I know you did the Lord Bacall, episode and stuff, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that there have been people who have disputed, when I talked about how tall he was. There have been people that have disputed that. And yet I showed photographs of him inside his skeleton, inside that sarcophagus. And the interior of that sarcophagus is 9 feet. Mm-hmm. And he filled it up. I showed that on the air.
Yes, you did. People just don't want to listen to reason. I mean, and especially if it's an archaeologist.
Well, there's something about human nature that even people who are in the ranks of our genre of information want to make everything sort of a neat package that we can rationally explain in today's terms. Well, you can't. There are just some things you can't explain in today's terms. You can explain, you can describe it, but you can't rationalize it. And one of the things that I heard was, but the walls of that sarcophagus were thick. They are thick, but the inside measurement of that thing is 9 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And he filled it up. I mean, as far as I know, that photograph is the only photograph, the one that I showed, that's the only photograph out there that shows exactly what they saw when they took that lid off of that sarcophagus. It was taken right then. That shot was made right then. I think that was 1956, something like that. I don't know. But he filled the thing up. And, he was tall, and his people were not.
Hopefully, most of these people will have more guts to stand up and just like Mr. Ventry. I understood last time he called that he was working for a large company, and I asked him if he had any backlash from his involvement in UFOs and stuff, and he said no. That he went forward and they didn't mind at all.
Yeah, as long as he didn't involve them in it.
Yes, and nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Reasonable request on their part. And I wish more companies were like that.
Well, yes, true. I mean, and I can see where the archaeologists are somewhat different because they're preserving their jobs.
Yeah, they can't find anything that's outside of the accepted norm, because if they do, I mean, they can find it, and they do find it all the time. But if they report that and make a big deal out of it, they lose their funding and they lose maybe their position. I know of a professor at a university who started doing DNA on the Star Child skull, and he's done some on the Star Child skull. He's done DNA testing on some remnants of giants from South America for Klaus Donna.
Mm-hmm.
You remember Klaus that was on the show?
You had him as a guest, yes.
Yeah. What a fascinating guy that is. And he reported his DNA results on that, and as a result of that, was let go from the university.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. So that's what they face, you see. Mm-hmm. They face, well, should I tell the world about this, or do I want to eat next week,
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe like you said also, maybe some of the NASA employees are trying to get out some of the information and still preserve their jobs.
I think there's some of that, yeah. I think so. Just because I'm sort of schizophrenic with NASA. There are some shows where I scorch them unmercifully for something that they've done or failed to do, and then there are shows where I praise them to high heaven for things that they've done, and I say let's double their budget, but let's clean it up and tell them, stop the nonsense and just tell the truth. So I'm for them. Overall, I'm against the hiding of data and the doctoring of data and stuff. But look, NASA on this thing for December 21st, apparently NASA was right on the money. They told the truth. And they said, look, folks, there's not anything that we can see that could cause an earth-busting event. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to fear. And on this situation, I think they were true. But here's the problem. The problem is there are so many situations where they've been caught doctoring photographs from the moon and Mars. We don't know when to believe them.
Yeah, when speaking of Mars, when I see green on the side of a rock, I'm thinking life.
Yeah, and especially since sitting right there within feet of that rock was the Viking lander, and the experiment specifically to look for biology found it. Mm-hmm. It found it. Yeah.
Hey, Kevin, one last thing in closing.
Uh-huh.
I'm not psychic, never have been, or anything like that. And this 14th Baktum seems to be the same as the 13th to me.
In what way?
It's like December 31st and then January 1st.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just there was no revelation. No, I couldn't feel. I mean, you had the psychic woman, which like Mr. Horak says, he believes her. That they can feel stuff. I can't feel stuff like that. If I'm in a room of people and somebody's edgy or something like that, I can feel that and sense that.
The only thing that I felt to December 21st, the only thing that I felt was trepidation about playing that song where I'm singing. I'm serious.
I believe you, Kevin.
I work in music. I work along with Jeff Bird, and I sent it to him, and I said, "Look, just so you'll know, I am going to air this." And he's been kind of ribbing me about it a little bit, and I said, "Look, I'm doing it. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to do it because even though I can't sing, I want that message out there." And it's not professionally produced, and I just did it here in the studio, in the broadcast studio, and it's not professionally produced, and it's not intended to be. It's not intended to be released, and it's a Kevin Smith project, not a Jeff Bird project. But
kudos for you for doing it, and the lyrics are good.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, 623-444-5889, and also we have the flash message line is open. Mark over in New Zealand. Hi, Mark. He says, to answer Rusty's question about the significance of the number 144, more correctly, 144,000, it is a reference to the speed of light measured at the surface of the Earth, expressed in minutes of arc per second. 144,000. And guess what? In 1 second, light will travel 6.66 times around the Earth. 666 is the mark of the beast, and that equals the Earth. Those who have 144 written on their foreheads are purified souls and radiate light, usually depicted as a halo. Math: 144,000 divided by 60 minutes divided by 360 degrees equals 6.66. 1 degree equals 1 minute, which is comprised of 60 seconds. Now that's interesting stuff, Mark. There you go, Rusty. There's an answer from a fellow listener. Isn't it great? Fantastic stuff. All right, so Mark in New Zealand, if you are still with us, and I hope you are, and I expect you probably are, let me ask you this. Do you think that a Baktum, then, representing, you said those who have 144, what was that? Those who have 144 written on their foreheads are purified souls and radiate light. Do you think the 144,000 then has anything to do with purification, or has anything to do with holiness or something like that? Because one Baktum, folks, is 144,000 days. Also, if that's the speed of light expressed in arc seconds at the surface of Earth, if that's the speed of light, and it travels, let me get this straight now, minutes of arc per second, that's it. And then in 1 second, light will travel 6.66 times around the Earth. Is it possible then that this is an expression of 6.66 light years away from Earth would be the origin, perhaps, of Kukulkan? Now, there you go. That's something interesting to think about. All right, I told you that just before midnight, or just after midnight, actually just after midnight, on Central Time here in the U.S., I was going to play that song, and I am going to. So let me get some things set up here. What we're going to do is take a little break, and when we come back, we'll be primed and ready for me to terrorize your ears with that song, all right? We'll be back right after this.